Have you ever felt like you're being watched, even inside a moving car, with your headlights slicing through the fog in the middle of nowhere? I know that feeling all too well, and no matter how much time passes, it still wakes me up in the dead of night. The A1's always been part of my routine. An old weathered motorway, scarred by crashes and whispers of strange tales. But I never believed any of it until that early morning. It was late October 2019. I was driving back from a job in Newcastle, alone, around 2 in the morning. The radio was just static. My phone, no signal. The fog was getting thicker, like it wanted to swallow me whole. And the further I drove, the more it felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. Like the road had stretched. Things started feeling off when I passed an old abandoned service station. That place always gave me the creeps, but that night it was different. The lights, usually dead, were flickering, and I swear to God, there was a figure standing right under the sign, tall, thin, and completely still. It didn't look human. Even with my headlights shining straight at it, I couldn't see its face. Instinct screamed at me to floor it. I sped past like I was running from death itself. But then, just up the road, my headlights caught something even stranger. A bus parked on the hard shoulder, an old faded red double-decker, like something from the 60s with peeling paint. But there was no one. No lights inside, no driver, no sound, just the bus, sitting there like some kind of metal corpse, waiting. I thought it might be some knackered collector's vehicle, until I saw the detail that made my blood run cold. The front number plate was rusted to hell, but I could still make out the numbers, 777. I don't know what came over me. I slowed down, kept staring at it, and that's when I heard it. It came from the radio, even though it was off. A hoarse, childlike voice repeating, "You're late, you're late, you're late." I nearly lost control of the wheel. I slammed on the brakes right in the middle of the road. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I looked back at the bus, and it was gone. I thought I was losing it. I started the car, did a U-turn, and tried to find the spot where the bus had been. But all I saw was an empty hard shoulder, and the tire marks fading like they'd never been there. I sat there, hands shaking on the steering wheel, until I saw headlights coming the other way. It was another car, an older bloke driving. I waved him down, desperate, and he pulled over. "You all right, mate?" he asked, winding down his window. I told him about the bus. His face went pale. He said he'd seen the same thing 30 years ago. And that number plate, 777, it's known to folks around here. "Anyone who tries to follow that bus doesn't come back the same," he muttered. I thought it was just local superstition, but the worst was still to come. In the days that followed, that number, 777, started showing up in places it had no business being. On a toll receipt, on my car's digital clock, even in the number of missed calls on my phone, always 727. Then, a week later, at 7:07 in the morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered. All I heard was the screech of tires glass shattering, and then a whisper, "The next stop is yours." It broke me. I stopped driving for months, saw therapists, psychics, even priests. No one could explain it. But I know what I saw, and what I heard. And the worst part? That bus isn't just my nightmare. Others have seen it, across different decades, at different points along the A1, and they all share one thing. No one forgets the sound that comes before it appears. A voice that shouldn't be there. If you've ever driven that road in the early hours, maybe you've seen a shadow on the hard shoulder. Maybe you've noticed a bus that shouldn't exist, and maybe you've heard what I heard. But this isn't just a story, and I'm going to prove it with the next two accounts. The first is from a woman who survived an unexplainable crash in the 80s, and the second from a retired copper who swears he chased that same bus until it vanished into thin air. But before I go on, let me say this. There are things on the road that don't show up in your rearview mirror, but that doesn't mean they're not following you. If you're watching this alone, in the dark, you might want to turn on a light, because what's coming next isn't just a story, it's a warning. I've never told a soul about this. Not my husband, not my kids. Even now, when I drive anywhere near the A1, my stomach churns like my body's begging me to turn back. But that night, I didn't have a choice. And maybe if I'd listened to my gut, I wouldn't have lost half my life to that road. It was December 1986. I was 27, working as a nurse at Peterborough Hospital. My shift was meant to end at 11 p.m, but I had to cover for a mate and didn't leave until nearly 2 a.m. I was knackered. All I wanted was my bed, and the A1 was the quickest way home. The night was eerily quiet, not a single car but mine, and the air felt off. It wasn't cold, but it was heavy, like something was clinging to my skin. I turned on the radio, but it was just static. That bloody static. That's when my headlights caught something up ahead. A bus. Red. Parked. Completely out of place at that hour. My first thought was, why the hell is a double-decker bus sitting alone on the A1 at 2:17 in the morning? I slowed down, peered inside. No one. No driver. No passengers. But the lights were on. A sickly, pulsing yellow glow, like the old bulbs in a hospital corridor. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled over, kept the engine running, and just watched from my window. That's when I saw something move on the upper deck. A figure, thin, wearing what looked like an old-school uniform, something from the 1940s. It didn't move like a person. It was jagged, like a silhouette cut out and stuck against the background. And yet, I could feel it staring at me, even from that distance. I decided to get out of there, but the car, it wouldn't start. I swear on my life, I turned to key, but the engine was dead. The dashboard lights were off. Everything. It was like the battery had been drained. I started shaking, grabbed my phone. No signal. Then I looked back at the bus. The front door was open. Don't ask me why, but I got out of the car. I started walking toward it. Every step felt heavier than the last. The air turned freezing out of nowhere, and my ears started buzzing, like I'd dived into a pool. I climbed the 3 steps to the door, and then heard it. A child laughing, a faint whispered giggle coming from somewhere inside. "Is anyone there?" I called out. My voice came out weak, choked. Silence. I took another step. The corridor light flickered, showing empty seats and torn upholstery. A vile smell hit me, a mix of rust, mold, and something like burnt flesh. More laughter, coming from upstairs now. I should have run. but I climbed the stairs. At the top, there was nothing, just rows of empty seats and a thick fog that made no sense inside a bus. Then I saw it. At the far end, a door. A proper door, which is impossible on a double-decker. There's never a door on the upper deck. But there it was, and it started opening on its own. Inside, it wasn't a loo, not a storage cupboard. It was a corridor, a dark, endless corridor, with the same flickering bus lights stretching along the ceiling. And at the end of it, something was moving. I ran, tripped down the stairs, fell to my knees at the front door, crawled out, and stumbled back to my car, still dead. I screamed, pounded the steering wheel, and then, like it was all some sick joke, the engine roared to life. I reversed so hard I nearly went off the road. But when I checked my rearview mirror, the bus was gone. Nothing. No tire marks, no lights, nothing. I drove home in tears. The next day, I told the police. They laughed, said it was probably stress playing tricks. But a few months later, an anonymous letter showed up at the hospital's front desk. It just said, "You saw, they know you saw, and now you're on the route." I've never set foot on a bus since, never gone back to that road. And to this day, when I hear the distant screech of brakes, a chill shoots up my spine. That thing, that corridor, it wasn't from this world. And I think for a moment I stepped outside reality itself. I've never been one for urban legends. I've been a lorry driver for 16 years, hauling goods up and down the country on night routes. And I've seen it all. Drivers nodding off at the wheel, animals darting across the road, drunks stumbling onto the hard shoulder. But on the night of 28th September 2018, something happened on the A1 that completely changed how I see the road. It was just shy of midnight when I left the depot in Doncaster. The weather forecast had warned of thick fog between Grantham and Biggleswade. But since my route ended before that stretch, I didn't think much of it. The radio was playing one of those stations with old hits, and I was cruising along, already, dreaming about the sarnie I'd grab at the Texaco on the A1 southbound. Everything felt normal, until it didn't. Around 12:45 a.m., the fog hit, not gradually. It just appeared, like someone had dumped a bucket of smoke across the road. My headlights were bouncing off it like a wall of cotton. I slowed down, flicked on the hazard lights. I was completely alone. No cars coming, no cars going. Just the fog and the muffled sound of my tires on the wet tarmac. That's when I saw the bus. It came up on the opposite lane, heading north. But something was off about it. The body was old, a route master from the 60s long out, of service. And the strangest part? It made no sound. No engine, no rumble, not even the squeak of brakes. It just glided along the road like it was floating. Its headlights were dim, yellowish, and looked foggy from the inside. But even from a distance, I could see the digital sign was lit up, showing the number A0 and the destination as end of the line. I thought it might be some themed bus, maybe for a vintage event, until I noticed the passengers. There were people, or rather, shapes. Dark, motionless silhouettes. No faces, no movement. The driver, a thin figure in a cap, stared straight ahead, but something was wrong with his face. It was like it was smudged, distorted. Even in the dim light, I could have sworn his eyes. They were pitch black, like deep, empty wells. The bus passed me, and I swear on my life there was no engine noise, no vibration, no rush of air, just silence. I watched it in my wing mirror, and then, like reality was punishing me for looking too long, it vanished. 1 second it was there, the next, nothing but fog. I pulled onto the hard shoulder. I needed to breathe. Opened the door, let the cold air hit me. Looked back. Nothing. Grabbed my phone to record, to catch any proof. But the screen was glitching, not shaking physically. The display itself was warping, like some kind of electrical interference. Then the camera froze. I got back in the cab, started the engine. I just wanted out of there. The road felt narrower, darker. The streetlights had disappeared. That's when I realized something else. Something was inside the lorry. I didn't see it, I felt it. A stench of mold and wet metal filled the cab. My neck prickled, the air grew thick. A chill crawled up my spine like something was watching. I turned my head slowly. The back seat was empty, at least to my eyes, but the rearview mirror, it showed something else. A shadow, not a clear shape. It was like the darkness itself was sitting there, a dense outline sunk into the seat. My heart was hammering, and then I heard it. A whisper. End of the line. It was right by my ear. Cold, wet, and absolutely real. I yanked the wheel, floored it back onto the road. Didn't look back, just drove. Every mile felt like it weighed a ton. The streetlights finally flickered back into view. The fog lifted, and when I checked the mirror again, nothing. No shadow, no whisper. I got to the Texaco with my hands shaking, ordered a coffee, and locked myself in the loo for nearly half an hour. The bloke at the counter gave me an odd look, but didn't say a word. When I finally mustered the nerve to leave, I noticed something on the lorry's side window, like it had been traced with a finger in the condensation. Next stop, you. I scrubbed the glass. Water, detergent, the lot. But the words kept coming back every time the window fogged up. Now, whenever I'm on that route, I avoid the A1 between Grantham and Biggleswade. I take smaller roads, add time to the journey, but it feels safer, less watched. And the weirdest part, a few days later, I got an anonymous email with an here's attachment. It was a photo, grainy, taken from a distance, but it showed that same bus. The number, Ushduo, the sign reading end of the line, and in the front seat, clear as day through the window, was my face. Sitting there, staring out, like I'd already boarded, and just hadn't realized it yet. When I took the overnight shift, I never imagined my last trip as a National Express driver would plunge me into a nightmare. The schedule read, Newcastle to London, departure 1 a.m. A long, quiet haul straight down the A1. Most drivers griped about this route because of the curves, the thick fog, and the eerie emptiness after 3 a.m. But I needed the money, and I'll admit, I was curious to see if that legend was true. Because everyone in the transport business in this country has heard the stories. A ghost bus on the A1. An old vehicle that appears in your rearview mirror or sits parked on the shoulder, always between Boroughbridge and Grantham, and almost always just after 3 a.m. That night, everything seemed normal. Barely any passengers, an older lady with a lapdog, 2 teens coming back from a rave, and a suited man fast asleep since we left. I drove cautiously, my headlights slicing through fog that grew denser by the mile. The dashboard clock blinked, 3:11 a.m. That's when I heard it. From the back of the bus, beneath the engine's hum and the rattle of the road, footsteps. Not normal ones. They were sharp, dragging like someone barefoot, limping or bleeding. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Nothing. I kept driving, trying to convince myself it was all in my head. But the footsteps returned, this time with a whisper. "You're on the wrong road." I nearly slammed on the brakes. I looked again. Every passenger was asleep. Even the dog seemed in a trance. A few more minutes passed, and then I saw it. Out the side window, a shadow was keeping pace with the bus. Wasn't running or floating, it glided. It looked human, but its body was too long, like it had been stretched. Its arms flapped against the windows. And then it smiled. I swear on everything holy. It smiled, but it had no face, just a shadow, smiling. I yanked the wheel, nearly, veering off the road. The bus shuddered, and the suited man jolted awake, startled. But the moment I looked again, nothing. I pulled into an abandoned gas station I knew nearby, trying to pull myself together. I lit a cigarette, despite quitting. 3 years ago, the silence was absolute. Even the crickets stopped chirping. That's when I looked down the road and saw another bus coming toward me. It looked old. No modern headlights, just round vintage lanterns, peeling paint, an unreadable license plate. And it stopped, right beside me. But no one got off. No one waved. There was no driver. I walked toward it, driven by an impulse I'd now call a curse. The door opened on its own, and inside they were there. Passengers, motionless, some without eyes, others with skin burned and stretched over their faces like dried masks. One of them looked at me. I recognized him. It was my father, but my father died in 1999 in a crash on that very highway. I saw his body in the hospital myself. "Get back to your bus," he said. "It's not your time, yet." I ran back like a madman, started the engine and floored the gas. The other bus vanished in the rearview mirror like smoke in the wind. And I kept driving until dawn. The passengers, they woke up like nothing happened. The lady with the dog even asked why I looked so pale. Back at the depot, I went straight to the supervisor and quit. I never went back to the A1, but I've never escaped it, because sometimes when I'm alone, I hear those dragging footsteps in my apartment hallway, or the sound of an old bus horn coming from nowhere. Once, I woke up with his words echoing in my ears. "It's not your time, yet." And what if I told you that weeks later, another driver took that exact route and was never seen again? His bus was found empty, doors open, engine running, with no sign of a struggle. Just a note on the driver's seat. He saw the bus, too. So, tell me, do you still think this is just a story? Are you sure you're alone wherever you are right now? And what if the next set of headlights on the road reveals something that shouldn't be there? If this video gave you chills, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. Do you believe in the A1 ghost bus? Or better yet, have you driven past it without realizing?